Greetings from wherever the hell I'm recording this from. It's me, your not so good buddy waifu collector, the only fair human on earth, back again to talk some more about the upcoming League of Legends fighting game 2XKO. Because after playing the Alpha Lab, I talked about 2XKO and how it's a really good game that needs a lot of fine-tuning still, as expected of an alpha. But who even cares, honestly? Mechanics and balancing and game feel, all that's stupid. Let's talk about what we really want to talk about when it comes to 2XKO. The roster. Who will be and who should be in this game? Because League of Legends has over 160 playable champions, and if you factor in champions from Legends of Runeterra and Teamfight Tactics, well then there's even a few more. Lots and lots of goddamn choices, and what I'm gonna do today isn't talk specifically about what I would want the launch roster to be, but speak more generally about what kind of characters the roster will need, in my opinion, and who should be considered. And I think we have a decent amount to cover, so if you end up enjoying this video, please give it a like later and consider subscribing too. It'll keep me from killing myself. That's a joke. I'm kidding. I'm gonna kill myself regardless. No, that's a joke. Okay, without further ado, let's talk champions. Now, obviously, the plan going into this is for 2XKO to continue receiving updates and playable characters long after the initial release. But before we think about any of that, we've got to think about the first impression, the launch roster. You've got to create a well-balanced group that people want to engage with, not only mechanically, but aesthetically. And right now, the roster we're aware of consists of 7 characters: Darius, Ahri, Echo, Braum, Illaoi, Yasuo, and Jinx. We also do have a deconfirmation for launch roster, as we were told from the devs that Katarina, who was briefly visible in an early showing of the game, will not be in the launch roster. And you know, considering that this roster is not the complete launch roster just yet, I'd say these 7 characters are not bad at all, but it's not perfect. We need a few more eye catchers and a few more archetypes, you know? Where my mind goes immediately is to Yordles. We need Yordle representation in this game. Maybe a few of them down the line, but at launch, we need at least 1, but I'd say 2 to flesh things out really well. It will add an air of uniqueness and variety to what is so far a roster of people. I mean, shout out Ahri, I know she's Vestayan, but I'm gonna go ahead and mark Fox people kinda under people, especially considering how much more human than Fox she is. Yordles kinda being these small furry pixie goblins would stand out among the current roster and would resonate with certain types of players. There's also the immediate and automatic gameplay gimmick that would be introduced with a Yordle because of their heightened size, where you've got to be more mindful about the attacks you're using because a lot of them are just gonna whiff right over their fucking heads. But if you were only to pick 1 or 2 to begin with, which specific Yordle do you choose to be part of the launch roster? Well, a lot of people's minds probably go straight to who is probably the most popular Yordle character in League, Teemo. And I don't necessarily disagree. Teemo would be a very interesting addition, and you can cover other bases with him depending on what kind of mechanics you want to introduce. He could potentially be a trap setup and poison character, if poison is something they want to include in 2XKO. And based on Darius having wound, I'm gonna assume it is. But I can easily see Teemo being an awesome, annoying character, who follows in the footsteps of his League variation. It would be cool if one of his supers just flat out turned him invisible too. I think that would be a fun idea. Teemo's not a bad choice at all, and I'd be happy with it if he were on the launch roster. However, my Yordle pick, if I were to only get 1, would 100% go to Poppy. Poppy is built for 2xKO. Like, are you fucking kidding me? She's a little armor-clad Yordle with a hammer. So while she would still get to be a gimmick character because of her stature, because of her big-ass hammer, she would still fight fairly traditionally, and you can circumvent the issue of her having short reach. Maybe also in line with some of her league abilities, you can make her a character with a lot of knockback and possibly even fashion her into a type of melee zoner. Honestly, never putting Poppy in this game would be a horrible crime punishable by death, but even just not putting her in the launch roster is still a crime in and of itself, if you ask me. Other Yordles like, say, Rumble and Tristana, I think should come later, if at all. Rumble because he is in a mech and it kinda gets rid of the whole Yordle small gimmick, and Tristana just doesn't seem all that suited to be in a fighting game. Not saying it's impossible to make happen, it certainly isn't, but I think there are other characters more well suited to do a lot of things that she'll likely bring to the table. However, a Yordle I find just as deserving to show up as Poppy, and would only pick Poppy over for personal reasons, is Fizz. Fizz would actually go great in 2xKO and has his own unique look even among the Yordle characters. Now, I implied that I'd only pick Poppy over Fizz because I like Poppy more, but honestly, I just believe that Poppy has a better character design, and I think that's what should make her a higher priority. But in truth, I would not be opposed to both of these characters showing up in the launch roster. Well, at the least, there should be one. For the overall health of the roster, I think 2 Yordles at launch would be better. But if you're only picking one, make it Poppy. Oh, but you know what? Oh shit, I forgot about Vex. Oh man, Vex would be great in this game. Holy shit, man. Yeah, Vex over Fizz for sure. Vex Poppy, that's a bit of a toss-up for me, but for sure Vex over Fizz. So let's say 2 Yordles, Poppy, and Vex. Sorry, Fizz. Anyway, what else does this roster need? I'll tell you. Monsters. We need non-human characters who present and or play strangely. I think it's important to make an effort to include weirder choices in characters like Yordles and monsters, especially because there is no shortage of human characters with weapons in League who would just be an insane relative ease to insert into 2xKO. Characters like Olaf, Tryndamere, Samira, Katarina, all that sort of thing. Not that there's something wrong with those characters, but just don't overlook the freaks, you know? The freaks make for interesting fighting game characters and enhance the roster. And I understand they may be tricky to figure out, so you don't always want to do it, and you don't want to fill the roster with too many monsters and weirdos, because then you lose your roster's relatability. But I think we need at least 2 monster non-human characters when the game launches. A great choice in my head is Fiddlesticks. Fiddlesticks would just be an awesome roster addition, if for no other reason than the simple fact that he stands out so much when put next to everyone else. That's even true when you put him next to most of the League of Legends roster, because Fiddlesticks is a heavily horror-inspired design in a world mostly devoid of those kinds of aesthetics. He looks like Tim Burton designed a League of Legends champion, and I think his intimidating stature, creepy aesthetics, and potential for cool moves make him an excellent choice. Another non-human character that would be welcome to me for completely different reasons is Naafiri. Naafiri is a fucking dog, bro. Maybe I'm crazy and could be wrong. I'm not being sarcastic, but I think people would pick the dog. And in my opinion, it would be really cool. Now, getting some of her animations right and even figuring out what those animations should be might be a hurdle, but it could definitely work. I mean, just look at Amaterasu from Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Yeah, I just think Naafiri would be a pretty sick and varied addition to the 2xKO roster. Finding a way to incorporate her pack mates outside of just being a super move might be tough, but it'll be worth it. Riot, please consider Naafiri. Now, as cool as both Fiddlesticks and Naafiri would be, my actual personal first choice for this type of character slot would be Vel'Koz, League of Legends resident eyeball tentacle monster. Remind you of anyone from a different game in the same genre as 2xKO? I mean, while I do think Vel'Koz's similarities to Shumagarath would actually be a boon to the game off of the strength of legacy and nostalgia, it isn't the only reason why I think Vel'Koz would make a good pick. I think he would just ignite a lot of curiosity in players because of how odd he and his body are compared to what you think a fighting game character should look like. It's maybe one of the strangest picks you could go with, and thus a great choice to diversify the roster. Now, there is the matter of Vel'Koz actually being really big in the canon lore, but obviously they changed champion sizes in League compared to their canon lore sizes, so why can't they do the same thing in 2XKO? Well, they can and likely will, but until we see it, we don't have an idea of the biggest character they'll permit in the game. Will they allow MVC Sentinel-sized characters on screen, or are we shrinking everything down to be around Brahm's size maximum? Until somebody like Ornn or Volibear or Galio or Malphite or Nautilus or Vel'Koz shows up, we'll just have to wait. And while I'm on the subject, a big huge Sentinel-esque character or characters would be welcomed by me, but I don't think the game needs it necessarily. It would be fun if it showed up, but I get it if it doesn't. But alright, moving on. What else could we possibly need? I think we just need some cool characters. Distinctively cool characters who would stand out among the current known roster, but also likely translate fairly easily into a fighting game setting. No champion embodies this more for me than Rengar. I think it's very, very easy to imagine Rengar in 2XKO and what he'd be like and things he'd be doing. And just as important as any of that, he's a cool hunter catman. I think lots of players would just think he looks cool, there'd be a nice benefit of an additional non-human character, and he wouldn't have to play too oddly. Similarly, someone like Renekton would also work. And listen, I'm a Crocodile Man over Catman guy personally, but I think Catman would be more popular and serve the game better. Or you could just do both, because I think there needs to be at least 3 of these distinctive feature characters on top of the known roster. Of course, that doesn't only mean being an animal person like a Vastaya or Ascended, and maybe you don't want too many animal folks too fast, otherwise this shit turns into bloody roar. But I don't think that's a legitimate big concern. But somebody like Zac or Zoe could also work. Zac because he's a weird blob flubber guy, and Zoe because, well, she's a kid, or at least visually she is. I think in Zac's case, he would play pretty normally, but would have some fun animations that made him seem different. However, he doesn't have the strongest design, so it's probably best to let someone else have his roster spot for now. But with Zoe, I think a lot of people would immediately enjoy the idea of a playable kid character. She'd probably also have some cool animations that would give her every attack a level of playfulness, almost like she thinks you guys are just horsing around while she beats you up. However, she likely wouldn't be an incredibly simple character because of all the portals and stuff, which would be up to the devs to decide if they want to add another more complex character. That's the kind of thing you have to space out and plan. And although this isn't Mortal Kombat and no one is getting mutilated, Riot may still want to avoid the visual of characters like Darius cleaving a little girl with his huge axe. I mean, honestly, there's no blood and gore in this game, so I think that's kind of a lame reason to leave her out, but Riot devs might rather be safe than sorry. Regardless, a different character who works in these distinctive slots is Thresh. Thresh looks really cool. I'm a weirdo who personally thinks Unbound Thresh looks better. I honestly don't know how people feel otherwise, but both versions are still cool. His ghostly undead vibes would make a hell of a launch roster character, and I think you'd see a lot of players flock to him early. There's also the added little benefit that he's pretty important in some big lore stories, so there's more reason to enjoy the character for people who end up getting sucked into Runeterra lore out of interest for characters in 2XKO. Looking into Thresh lore is an easy way to get sent down the rabbit hole. Oh, you know what? Oh fuck, I forgot about the perfect champ for this category. I keep forgetting people. There's too many champions. Fucking Kindred, dude. Kindred is legitimately legitimately perfect. Thinking about the moves Wolf and Lamb could do together, that shit would be insane. And they just look so cool on the roster. Yes, Kindred already looks cool, but wait till the people who don't know find out that they're basically Runeterra's version of Death. Oh man, everybody's gonna play them. My only concern is that the way Wolf is used might have too much overlap or similarity to the way that Vex would use Shadow, but if we've got to cut one character because of that, as tough as it is, I think Kindred beats her out. But it's okay because we still have Fizz to fall back on for the Yordles. Fizz, you're back in. Anyway, here's the thing. 2XKO will in all likelihood launch with anywhere from 16 to 20 characters, 7 of which we already are aware of. All I'm saying is for the rest outside of that 7, pick a couple of Yordles, a couple of freaks, a few distinctively cool designs, and even if you took all those suggestions, you tally up to 14 characters, and you're still left with 2 to 6 unused slots, which I suggest be used for some popular gimme characters. Characters like Misfortune, Lux, Aatrox, Akali, Vi, Caitlyn, that kind of thing. The popular people. I would say Viego, but they're gonna want to make a whole thing about him showing up, so he'll definitely be post-launch, and also include some ruined skins for existing characters in his patch. I'm calling that guaranteed. But yeah, the 7 characters we have, 2 Yordles, 2 monsters, 3 cool dudes, and 6 more popular choices. That's a 20 character well-balanced roster. That's the kind of thing I'm looking for, man. And listen, there are a lot of characters that I didn't mention that I think would be cool, so Riot has options. My hope isn't really that they pick the exact characters I've said. As amazing as that would be, it's a pipe dream, but I don't think it's ridiculous to ask for these parameters and conditions to be met. If they don't pick Poppy and Vex, that's fine. If instead it's Gnar and Lulu, I don't care. As long as there's Yordles there, that's great picks. If instead of Rengar they do Maokai, instead of Thresh they do Karthus, I don't know. That one might not be great. But you see what I'm getting at. And let's just say they just leave out Zoe completely. Sure, fine, I'll take it. These suggestions I made are far from my purely selfish picks. I'm really just talking about the health of the game, sprinkled with some personal preference. If I was going pure selfish, I would have made mention of Nautilus, Mordekaiser, Nunu and Willump, Ornn. Oh my god, Riven. Wait, hold on. I actually do need Riven. Put Riven in the game. Oh my god, she's perfect. Okay, please, I need Riven. Alright, that's pretty much the video. I hope you enjoyed. If you're really bored, go in the comments and drop your additional 9 to 13 characters you want to see in 2XKO. I'm interested to see. If you did have a good time talking 2XKO roster, then please leave a like on the video and maybe even subscribe. I appreciate you even just watching though, so thanks. And until next time, I am Waifu Collector. I am just a normal guy. I like hentai, and I kinda want Briar in the game too. Goodbye.